is happening, everybody? All right, so for this video, we're talking about 392 Hemi. The reason why is that this is the platform that I get the most questions on the channel. So let's dive right into what will help make your 392 powered contraption get down the road or get down the drag strip a little bit quicker. First of all, got to put yourself on a tire. I don't care if it's a Nitto or a Mickey Thompson or anything else, put a drag radial on the back of it. You'll thank me for it. The difference between a Tri-5R Nitto and a Mickey Thompson ET Street SS is that the Nitto is going to last a little bit longer. The ET Street SS may hook up a little bit better. Again, it doesn't matter. Put that tire on the back of your car in the stock size, or if you've got a Scat Pack, 275 40/20 will look and perform just fine on the back of it. For you SRT guys or for you Hellcat wheel guys, what is it? 305 35/20 I think is the weapon of choice with that. Either way you go, again, it doesn't matter. Just get a drag radial on the back of it. The stock tires are garbage. It should be actually criminal that they put that kind of tire on the back of a car making that much power. That's going to be a huge difference for you. Next on the list, you're going to have to start cutting weight. And the big thing here is cutting weight on a wholesale level. I'm talking rear seat delete. I'm talking passenger seat delete. I'm talking door panels. I'm talking carpet. I'm talking paint. I'm talking body panels. Fuck it, take the wheels and tires off the thing. No, but seriously, you got to start dropping weight. These cars are insanely heavy from the factory, and you're going to have to know that you're already up against about a 400 to 600 pound deficit coming into this argument. So best places to start losing weight, throw the Mopar rear seat delete in the car or just take the rear seat all the way out. Also, if you're into removing the passenger seat, between the passenger seat and the rear seat, you're looking at about 100 pounds removed out of the vehicle. But you can also start looking, depending on how aggressive you want to get with your weight reduction, you can go with a racing front seat. That'll save you about another 20 to 30 pounds. Aluminum front and rear bumper supports. That'll save you a grand total of about another 40 pounds. Archangel battery in the trunk. That'll save you about 20 pounds. Again, after you start adding everything up, not including wheel and tire setups or lightweight brakes or anything like that, you can remove at least a solid 150 pounds out of the car. No, it's not going to level the playing field, but it will at least get you close. And the idea is to at least try to get close enough, because the 392 is a really great platform stock, but if it's got to move this much mass, you're already up against a deficit. So get as much weight out of the car as you possibly can. In the game we're playing these days, guys, your competition is stripping their cars straight to the shell. So if you don't frown upon that and you don't mind taking on that task, that's going to be a great way to start picking up some ET. Now, so far, we've only talked about consumables, tires in this case, and removing weight, which is more or less free, provided you're not actually buying the front and rear bumper supports. Then in that case, it'll cost you about $400 or a racing seat or what have you. But just removing stuff doesn't cost anything. But now we got to start talking about stuff that does actually cost money. Oh, and by the way, when I say consumables, those stock tires that you've got, yeah, you're going to be replacing those really quick. So really, the drag radial argument about it costing any money is bullshit, because you're going to be doing it anyway. Replacing tires, that is. So let's get into now tuning, hard parts, hardware, stuff like that. First of all, you're going to have your car tuned one way or another. So yeah, basically you can start looking at, getting your computer unlocked and getting your car tuned. You're going to want to make sure you're talking to somebody that speaks Mopar. Don't take the car to somebody just right down the street. You don't want your car being beta tested for somebody. Believe me when I tell you, you have to know how to speak Mopar to get one of these things to perform at its best. So do your research, do your due diligence, and get that rolling. While you're at it, because you're going to be tuning the car, there's going to be some things you may be tempted to do, like removing the catalytic converters, throwing long tube headers on the car. You're going to have a tune to do those things anyway. So might as well do that en route. But now let's talk about some hard parts like long tube headers. What's the gain with that? Well, you won't gain any horsepower per se. I mean, you're getting the car tuned anyway, But with the stock camshaft, there's just not enough overlap to really scavenge. And that's the whole point of long tube headers, is to scavenge exhaust. So you won't pick up a lot in terms of horsepower, but you will pick up some partial throttle torque, and you'll pick up some low end torque. So there's your gain for long tubes. They're basically just going to pick up some drivability. As far as catalytic converters go, the modern catalytic converters are not restrictive at all at that power level. So it's 6 to 1, half a dozen to another. I prefer cats mainly because I like the way that they sound. I've had the 392 car with the cats removed. It sounded pretty good, but I was also running full exhaust, full factory exhaust. Which brings me to the next point. Speaking of exhaust, we were talking about weight reduction earlier. You can also remove your resonators or your mid mufflers or both. I don't care. It's your car. Do whatever the hell you want with it. But I can tell you that hacking up your exhaust with an X pipe basically makes it sound shrill, and it's not that, I don't know, it's just not a good sound. It just kind of sounds like shit. I would recommend possibly leaving your mid mufflers on the car, lose the resonators. You'll pick up a weight savings in the process of a little bit of noise. And if you've got the cats removed, it does sound pretty nice. But just be warned, your jurisdiction may vary, and some jurisdictions, by the way, frown a lot on removing catalytic converters. However, hacking up exhaust typically doesn't get you too much attention from Johnny Law. So, provided you're not doing anything dumb, you probably won't catch any heat. Now, getting up to the, now let's talk about the engine stuff, because this is really where guys want to talk power. What kind of power increases am I going to get? Well, not that much with a tune. I'll tell you that right now. Tune, long tubes, cat delete with a factory intake, factory throttle body, factory airbox, all of that stuff. You'll be doing good to pick up 20, maybe 25 on a very nice dyno, but these cars just don't pick up a lot. A lot of that has to do with the cam. It's just it's an aggressive lobe profile with a very wide lobe separation angle. I'm not going to get into the details of why that works on these cars, but suffice it to say that the camshaft is one area where you can pick up some horsepower, as well as a properly ported intake manifold and a larger throttle body, or at least a true through-ported throttle body. That combination right there is going to yield you, you figure you'll get, say, 10 with the throttle body and a cleaned up intake manifold. By the way, I'm going to stop right there on the intake manifold. These are polymer intake manifolds on the 392s. They get a lot of casting flash in there. Basically, you're just cleaning up the intake. There's no way to properly port that manifold because that runner loops all the way around. There's just no way to get up in there and port it. However, you can clean it up, and you can certainly clean up the throat where the throttle body bolts to the manifold. That's really where most of your gains are made. But anyway, it doesn't matter. Get your intake manifold ported. That's all I'm going to give. I'm not going to really get into the details on that. A true through ported throttle body, again, you're looking at about 10 horsepower. Added to roughly, say 15 to 20 horsepower that you're getting from a tune and long tubes, you're looking at about 35 odd horsepower to the rear wheels. Doesn't sound like a lot, but it's certainly a lot better than what you started off with the other main benefit being, if you're tuning the car, you get more performance out of transmission tuning with those cars than you do with anything else. So again, transmission tune along with the engine tuning. We'll take a car that bone stock on a radial in obnoxious air will go 1190s, say 1180s on, just if you've got a lightweight driver, and and a lot of weight reduction. I've even seen 1170s bone stock. That'll drag you down into the 1130 range. Throw a drag pack wheel and tire setup, save a little bit more weight. That'll get you down to the 1120, 1110 range. So where do we go from here? Well, next stop on this train is the camshaft. This is where guys go completely and totally wrong with 392s. You've got to remember that camshafts, you always take away from somewhere to gain somewhere else. Yeah, it's a VVT engine, meaning variable valve timing engine, but it doesn't matter because it can't adjust intake and exhaust separately. Because of that, no matter how much variance you have with that cam, you're still going to be giving up torque down low to get power up top. My suggestion is this: take a look at the cam specs. I don't like to see anything in a 392 with at 050 duration any more than about 220 degrees on the intake side, no more than about 230 on the exhaust. Now, you can look at camshafts and go, oh, well, you know, there's quite a few cams that look a lot like that. That's exactly right. There'll be a lot of variance of that particular 220, 230 variant. However, there are miles difference between the cams based on their lobe profile. Some lobes will ramp up to that peak valve lift number, which I'm not even going to get into with this, because if it's marketed for a 392, you already know it's going to be 590 something intake and 560 to 580 something on exhaust. It doesn't matter at that point. So again, getting back to it though, the lobe profile has a lot more to do with the performance of that camshaft than the specifications. But for just general use, I mean, for something that you're going to just basically put together for playing around on the street, there's quite a few off-the-shelf cams that are okay, but get a custom ground for the best results. And I'll tell you this, when it comes to camshafts, the big number one problem that I've had with camshaft cars that I've driven have been that they have been dogs down low in the RPM band. So just know that coming into it, the dynamics of how your car drives, even with a ton of extra driver command torque, which is just a fancy way of saying pedal sensitivity, the car can still potentially feel a little bit weak or a little bit lackluster because it's just not making the same torque that it used to down low. However, it's not going to have a huge hit on the big end. It's going to be spunky, it's going to be peppy, it's going to run good, but it's also going to lose a little bit of that hit down low that makes the 392 so, well, it just makes it a lot of fun in stock form. So what does all of this get you? Well, on a Mustang dyno, look to get somewhere around 40 horsepower, 45 horsepower to the rear wheels with that combination taken to its fullest. That's cam lifters, which could be Hellcat lifters. So cam, Hellcat lifters, 080 push rods, PSI 15-16 springs, Cook's long tube headers, high flow catalytic converters, stock exhaust with a reso delete, and you know, the rest is just all going to be weight loss stuff. But all of that together will pick you up on a Mustang dyno somewhere in the range of about 40 to 45 horsepower on your 392. Lose the cats and you'll be able to kill cat over temp, which means that, you know, you might still be able to maintain that power at the tail end of the drag strip where that cat over temp may come into play. Aside from that, what's the last big ticket items if you're going to stay naturally aspirated? Because I ain't even going to bother talking about boosted for a 392. The next step is going to be stroker kits. Now, this is where I'm going to start to caution you guys. You will begin to be stepping over durability to collect bottom end torque numbers for now. 426 is probably safe in the longer term than a 440, but 440 is available. But I can tell you that the option, if it's me, to go with the stroker motor is only there if something catastrophic had gone wrong with my 392. In lieu of throwing boost at it, sure, I say go for it, go ahead. But the reality is that all of this doesn't necessarily mean that your car is going to be a surefire mid to low 10-second 392 powered car. It just doesn't work that way. And so far as I've seen, at least in, you know, the amount of time I've been playing with these things, a lot of folks will start to get frustrated and will start to move on well past that point. And at that point, they've already either gotten rid of their 392 to get a Hellcat, or, as I've said over and over again, Ford dealership used car lots are littered with 392 powered cars. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that, you know, you can do all the same things I'm talking about to a 392 to these 2018 Mustangs. So let's talk about some history real quick. 392 was introduced in 2011. Aftermarket didn't take to it very well, and they never have, even in the last 10 years. not in the way that they seem to just fall in love with the Mustang and the Camaro. So just know that your part selections are going to be a little bit limited. And I'm bringing that up to talk about intake manifolds specifically. I know guys have gone to like a 6.1 intake, or you can go with the BBK or the Holley intake. I'm going to caution you on that real quickly, because the problem with intakes like the Holley is that you're going to be giving up a significant amount of bottom end torque to pick up power on the big end. If you're going to run a setup like that, you're going to need to spin this engine to like 7,200 RPM, and I'm not so sure the pistons are really up for that challenge. But that's really where you're going to want to spin the thing to make power. That's where you're going to want to look into getting a set of stand key tie bars and collars to keep that valve train stable at those types of RPM. But I wanted to touch on that just to let you know that, you know, as far as the aftermarket goes, you don't have that many options. The BBK is a heat holding tank of an intake manifold. On the dyno, it might show some decent numbers. If you ice it down at the drag strip, you'll probably get some benefit out of it. But so far as I can tell, it's just a big, heavy chunk of aluminum sitting on top of the thing. Whereas the Holley is a little bit better as far as, you know, being a shorter runner intake manifold. I think the jury's still a little bit out on that, because even though you do pick up horsepower with a camshaft and exhaust and everything else that it's going to take to get it right, you do lose all that torque down low, and that's a bit of a problem if you're trying to get a tank like one of these Mopars rolling, even with all the aforementioned weight reduction tricks. You're just going to take some gearing to get these things where they need to be. So, you know, you might start looking at 370 gears at that point if you're going to be turning this thing to like 7,200 RPM, but you're going to be on a slick at that point on a prepared surface, and, you know, the car is basically just going to be a race car at that point. So, at any rate, wanted to walk you through that, but if you follow the recipe, you know, the cam, the headers, the weight reduction, the drag pack wheel and tire setup with the 17s and the whatever up front. I'm running 18s because this is a Hellcat, but this is the same setup I had on my SRT. It's basically a garden variety high 10-second package with one of these Mopars. And hey man, it's just money. Get out there and spend it like you don't have it you won't have it tomorrow. That's what you're going to have to do with the Mopars, because, oh yeah, all the stuff for the Mopars considerably more expensive than what you may be used to spending for Fords or Chevrolet. So just come into this knowing that you do have the Mopar tax that you're about to get tagged with. And that's it. You want a mid-10-second naturally aspirated 392 powered contraption. It's going to be tough to get there. You can get into the 10s, but since the holy grail seems to be running mid-10s, and I don't see too many people falling in line to try to spend the money to get their 392 there, I can tell you that as somebody that has been kind of down this path already, there's a reason why there's a Hellcat sitting behind me right now. And I'll say this, there are no regrets on that trade. However, I will say this, I do feel like I sold myself a little bit short with the 392, and there are some things that I wish I would have done differently with my car. I've rattled off pretty much everything that I really wanted to do in route to putting a 10-second time slip in my back pocket. However, I have seen and have been a part of builds that have gone 10s. So with that being said, get out there with your 392 and have a little bit of fun. Try not to do anything stupid, and I'll catch you on the next one. That's a wrap. Adios.